Because what we want to do is explore a couple key areas, and I love the way Paul introduced the RSOF Next vision and what showed up there, because it's a lot of what we deal with. It is the intangibles. It's the things that I can't put my finger on. It's the things we don't talk about often, right? I acknowledged Paul when I got here. I said, hey, I just really am impressed that love shows up in a document relating to Special Operations Warriors. I think that's a powerful point because it is true. It is what shows up. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to call it those things. But it is there. It is how we've survived and what it is we've been committed to for so long. And what we want to do now, kind of in the next 30 minutes, is look at how do we take a document, how do we take a vision from the leadership, how do we take a narrative, and then at your level, how do you lead effectively? How do you take that and craft the context of that in your unit, in your space and time with your people? And then ultimately, as a leader at any level, I mean, you're in the United States military. A private is expected to be able to step up and be a leader at any point in time, right? Absolutely. So leadership goes all the way through. And really, where does power and velocity show up for us as leaders? You know, I'm a guy that for me, you know, motivation and inspiration left to themselves is like the Snickers bar. It's only going to get you so far, and then there's going to be a crash on the other side. Paul nailed it on the head when he talked about inspiring to action. There has to be something behind it, because that is where you start to show up with power. Yeah? How often do we use that word? How do you think of yourself as, hey, am I a powerful leader? Yeah? You want to be there. It's interesting where we show up in terms that we don't often bring into our language, and that's what I really appreciate about how you've crafted RSOF Next. And so out of the conversation in the Young Lions, one of the things that we really look at is crafting context, creating distinctions. And I generally ask them, I say, listen, I'm going to go around the room and I want you to define for me exceptional. If I could take exceptional, wrap it up and put it right here in front of everybody, what does exceptional look like? Think about that for a second in your own head. What does exceptional look like for you? If I've got 8 people in the room, how many answers do you think I get? How many differences do you think I get? 8, yeah? 12, sometimes, yeah? I've had people have conflicting views of, well, yeah? So if you went back to your unit, went back to your team and said, hey guys, what does exceptional look like? We all choose to be, we all want to be exceptional, right? That's how we want to be viewed. That's how we want to operate. That's a level that we choose to operate at. But whose definition of exceptional are we working off of? Yeah? And so I use this example to start to talk about our responsibility in crafting the context for things. So I want to do a little exercise I like doing with everybody. I'm going to ask for you to participate with me here, because I think it really drives home this idea. So do me a favor. Sit back and cross your arms. You get to do this. I feel exceptional. You should. Yeah? So how long have you been crossing your arms this way?
My whole life.
Forever. Yeah? Forever. At some point in time, you decided that this was the way you were going to do it, and this is it. And this is comfortable. Yeah? It's comfortable to sit back and cross your arms. And this is normal. And this is as it is. Yeah? This is how it shows up. This is life. Now, do me a favor. Reverse them. Cross them the other way.
Exactly.
Not easy. Not easy to do. Yeah, you can relax and uncross your arms. I had to figure out I had to start saying that to people, you know, because I went on for about 10 minutes, everybody still did. Okay? So that's not easy to do, and it's not as comfortable. Yeah? Now, if you crossed your arms differently every day for the next 6 months, what would happen? Yeah, it would become comfortable. It would be okay. You could do it. You may revert back to the different ways of doing it, but you can physically do it. And so for us, when we start looking at crafting context and bringing forward distinctions, to me, the way I look at exceptional, The distinction of exceptional is the willingness to be uncomfortable every day. It's the willingness to cross your arms differently. It's the willingness to learn something new, to open up to a new idea, to grow and develop. I mean, look, we're at the top tier. You talked about it, selection and assessment. USASOC nails it in every capacity. What is the process of going through that? It's being uncomfortable, right? You're used to it. And so when you step back to your units, when you look at taking a narrative or an idea or the principles out of RSOF Next, and you go back now and say, what do I do with this, right? How do I? This is great, Paul, thanks. Appreciate you writing this. But what do I do with it? Yeah? You start to craft the context as a leader. You start to draw those distinctions together. You start aligning the team appropriately with a common core understanding around that common vision, and you get to craft the context within your realm. Does that make sense? Yeah? And when you start to do that, everyone starts to align, and you're starting to lead with that power and velocity that you need. Start to unify the conversation within your own unit. And you're not working off of your idea or your idea or your idea of what exceptional might be. Yeah, because do you want to be assessed on his idea of exceptional? No, not at all. Yeah? So how do you begin to do that? And so the challenge now stepping forward and looking at how you craft context is just that, is bringing forward distinctions. So there are a few things that we'll get into now kind of as we go through, and what I really want to do is focus on three key areas that we have seen repeatedly that show up and impact power and velocity as a leader, or power and velocity in moving ideas forward, okay, and in propelling units forward and what goes on there. I'll share a quick story with you. I was 26 and had my first epic failure as a leader. Epic. I'd grown up in the fire service very young, 16, got hired right out of high school, got bored, decided, hey, you know, going to Ranger Battalion might be a cool thing to do. Came into the Army, got out a few years later, went back to the fire service doing stuff. And here was the thing. When I grew up in the fire service, it was a very paramilitary, no BS environment. I was taught by great guys, firemen from the 50s and 60s out of, you know, Washington, D.C., guys that had done amazing stuff. I was taught to be a great fireman. And I was taught a very distinct style of leadership. And then I came into the Army and it was reinforced. And then I went back to the fire service, and what had happened was nobody told me the entire culture of the fire service had shifted. It was a very command-directed individual. I would look at my people and say, hey, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. What's going on? And we were going to be the best. I was a captain. I had 18 people. We were going to be the best, period. There was no doubt about that. And looking back, my people were the best. We were great. We were exceptional on the fire ground. No hands down, do anything, go anywhere, meet any challenge. And I thought I was a great leader. I thought I had it nailed. Rocked it. Yeah? I thought I was fantastic. And I was pretty well respected on the fire ground. My chief would say, hey man, you know, you bring a calming presence to it. You got it. He said, unfortunately, what I need to do is put you in a glass cage that says only break in case of emergency. Because what I failed to see in my line of vision was I was a horrific leader in the firehouse. Horrific. I rode my people in the ground. I wanted them to be the best. They were the best, but I rode them into the ground. And I walked in one day, and all 18 people sitting around the conference room table with the chiefs. And they all said, him or us. Yeah. Yeah. That sucked. And if you think about it for a second, right, if you think about a leader that you admire most, someone that you respect as a leader, and pick a word that describes them. Just think about it for a second. Just find that person, look at who they are, look at who they show up to be. Does that make sense? Who are they to you as a person, as a leader? Now here comes the challenging part. Put yourself at that table with your people. what's the one word they use to describe you? And what shows up there? Yeah? And it could be powerful. Could be committed. Would you be willing to stand up here and let them just file through? Freedom of speech, here you go. I get to say what I think of Paul and who Paul shows up for me as a person. How many of you would be willing to do that? Yeah. Huh? Let's not do that? We'll do that. Okay. So those are the things that we look at. And then what we want to do is understand, hey, listen, if things are going on and I lose power as a leader, everything starts to break down. Yeah, I mean, we were great on the fire ground for a long time. But because of my style of leadership, because I only had a specific lane, you know, in my mind at that time at 26, I was it, you know. I was great, but I showed up. We're videoing, I can't share the word that was used, yeah, to describe me. And so I had to do some serious re-engineering after that and some serious look at what was going on because I had a major loss of power as a leader. Yeah, I didn't know how to cultivate the environment. I didn't know how to grow and develop my people. I didn't understand what they were there for, why they were there, and what was going on about it. They'd have done anything in the world for me to a point, and then they just said, we can't do this anymore. Yeah? And so what we want to do is look at 3 core areas that show up for us continually that either give us real power and velocity, I mean the ability to move forward and lead in ways that we never thought were imaginable, bring people together, cultivate environments and do exceptional things, or really kind of break down the process for us. Yeah? How many of you ever felt like, if you think about it in this context, you've had a loss of power as a leader? Yeah, that you sat back and just kind of been like, I don't know what's going on. I don't get it. I wish, you know, what's here for me? And so what we look at is really this first one. And that's the ability to identify, share, and be or show up as your commitments. Okay? Now, what is a commitment? What does that look like? Now, you know, we all hold a lot of commitments to a lot of things. But here's the thing. Around commitments, you got to get down to the core. You got to peel that onion all the way down to the very center. Because that's who you show up as a person. I live a pretty examined life now. I really do a lot of reflection and look at where I've been successful and where I've just completely fallen on my face, and I had no problem sharing that. You know, that's just the way life goes. But what I figured out about me, about who I am as a person, is I am committed to the service of others. That's just who I am. Every day of my life, at every part of my life. You know, why at 16 years old did I go, hey, I'm going to go be a fireman, and, you know, by 17, pulled the first body out of a house fire, made a first rescue, did this, did that. Why did I have a drive to come join the military, do that stuff? Why did I accept the responsibility of stepping into other environments and do other things around the world at great costs at times? Yeah, as we all do. Where does that show up from? And understanding who you are and what it is you're committed to starts to give you the power to propel forward. Does that make sense? Yeah? I mean, I'm committed to a lot of different things as a company, and I lay this out, and this is why we get up every single day. We are a stand for you guys. We get up every single day, come to work, and bust our butts for you. Every day. You got a team, a small team, 7 people, every day, working hard to figure out what makes you tick and how to improve it and how to improve the processes around it. Because we are committed to transforming the training environments for you who choose to step into harm's way now. Because there's always a better way to do it. There's always more to be done. Yeah? And we operate from a place of commitment every single day. And if things for me show up, if I'm not hitting it or we're having struggles or we're having issues, if I look almost every single time, I go back to, I'm not operating from a place of my commitments. This is on the wall in my office, and this is a statement that we use all the time. Take actions in line with what you're committed to, not based on how you feel about your circumstances. Yeah? Everything is circumstances, by the way. Everything. You know, I'm really committed to my health and fitness, and not wanting to get out of bed in the morning and go to the gym, circumstance. Headache, circumstance. Didn't drink enough water, circumstance. Yeah, whatever it is, whatever shows up. My job in the agency for a long time was conducting training for people. And unfortunately, with the way that that world works, they would show up Monday and be like, hey, this is who we are, and we're ready to start training. And I had 20 minutes to go in and create an entire week or 2-week training plan and then make it happen on limited time, limited budgets, with limited resources. Circumstance, right? But what I was committed to at the time allowed me to figure it out, to take the actions necessary to produce the results that we needed to produce. It's a fundamental base. And if you're not aligned with what it is you're committed to, it starts to break down. You guys understand, somebody a long time ago sat around and said, hey, I need a group of people that can go anywhere, be absolutely innovative, completely adaptive in any situation and any environment under any circumstance, and produce the results we need produced. That's it. You want to know what a soft warrior is? That's it. That's it. Right? That's what shows up. And that's what you do every day. And that is powerful. Yeah? And so it is not the essence of an enterprise. You know, unfortunately, we live in an environment where we got to put those things in enterprise speak, and we got to put those things out. Power and velocity is at every level along the way. And when you're open to actually understanding what it is your commitment is, and you share that out, I mean, how many of you ever shared what it is you are committed to with the people you work with, above or below you? Awesome. Yeah. 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 When you do that, who's not going to support you? If I come to you and say, listen, I need you to understand that I am completely committed to the service of others. That's where I'm coming from. Can I get your support in that? Who's going to say no? Yeah? If you go back to your teams, if you share those commitments out, who's not going to support you? Yeah? But here's the thing about it, and this leads us to our next point. That commitment has to be authentic. Yeah? This is where power starts to show up. One, I can identify my commitments and I can share it with you, and I can give it out to you, and you can get it. Yeah? But where I will see one of my greatest losses of power is in my authenticity. Being authentic. It's not a list. There's no checklist. Okay, yeah, authentic. Yeah, it doesn't show up that way. Yeah, it is just being authentic. It's interesting to me. For years, I will share with you. You want some authenticity? I'll give it to you. It took me a long time to get to the place where I could be authentic. I hated being a 3rd Range Battalion. It was a struggle for me every day. I was out of place. I didn't feel like I fit in. I had no idea how to create this. I had no idea how to embrace the Ranger Creed and what it exists as, and how that then I take that and it shows up in me as a person. I struggled day in and day out. I mean, just, you want to talk about grinding it out? Every day. People ask me all the time, it's like, hey, do you remember so-and-so? Man, the only thing I remember about 3rd Ranger Battalion is how many specks were in a sheet of tile, right? Because I felt like I existed in the front leaning rest position. Wasn't a terrible soldier. That's not what I'm saying. But it was just not fun for me. Yeah? Just is what it is. And as I started to learn that, when I look back, oh, God, like, wow, if I had known today, what I knew then, completely different world. It wasn't an inability to do it. It was a breakdown of these things that we talk about here today. It was a breakdown of really setting out a commitment, because all of that was just circumstances. Yeah? All of that was just circumstances. And then as I moved forward into other units, and then as I went on to the intelligence world, like I took it, embraced it, understood it, got it, found my zone, found my comfort stuff. Yeah, enjoyed it. Thankful for it every day of my life. Those couple years of my life, I would never trade, ever. It sucked, but I loved it, yeah? Because it really gave me a base to draw from and a place to understand. And the cool thing now is, I don't have to be inauthentic about it. I mean, how many times do we have to be kind of inauthentic about things because we need to look good about stuff, or we can't break down, we can't fail. We get back into our minds of who we think we are or think we should be. I say this to people all the time, that if the shoulds, ifs, or whens show up in your conversation, you are being inauthentic. Well, it should be this way. They should follow me. We shouldn't have to do that. If they would do this, then we could do that. If we had better budgets, if these guys would play nice with these guys, when we finally get here, when this happens or when that happens. When those things show up in the conversation, there is an inauthenticity somewhere. There just is. Because you're out of line with what you're committed to, because a commitment shows up as anything and powerful over everything. Yeah? Yeah? Does that make sense to you? Yeah. These are the intangible things. These are the things that break down for us over time. And then this last piece of it. And this is kind of the tough one. It's time to be responsible and take responsibility. For you. In your space. If the if shows up or the should shows up in there, there's probably something you need to be responsible for. We had class last year or something, sitting in a discussion around being responsible and commitments and what commitments were looking like for people and what they were showing up. And I had a young officer constantly asking me, okay, when can I give up on this one? This is what I'm committed to, but I can't get the leadership to support me. I can't get these guys to go on. This won't go on. And he probably asked 10 times, when can I give this up? Sounds to me like you already have. Sounds to me like it's actually not even a commitment. You see, the commitment is the constant. It's the thing that will allow you to rise above the circumstances, to take on things at a whole different level, to move with power and velocity, to lead with power and velocity. And if you're asking yourself, well, when can I give this up? Then it's probably just time to give it up. Yeah? And as we explored that conversation, what we could see was, and I asked him a question. I said, okay, so your leadership won't support you. No, they won't. They just won't support me. Okay, great. What do you need to be responsible for in that conversation? Whose idea is it? It's mine. Okay? And your leadership won't support you? No. Okay. Who's responsible for that? Well, they are. Okay. Who's responsible for that? Well, they are. Okay. Who's responsible for that? I am. Right. Yeah, see, as a powerful leader, it's not a place of, I will shoulder it all. Yeah, we have this idea, and we do, and we always do, right? I will stand. If something screws up, it is on me. If something goes wrong, I own it. If I'm the guy, then it's mine, and it is my responsibility. But see, we're taking that to a different level here, where you're taking responsibility for owning what it is you're committed to, and the authenticity around that. If you're moving, if you're trying to cultivate your team, get guys going, make things happen, bring out RSOF Next in such a powerful way that it creates a significant impact on the future of this organization, yeah? Then you got to own the responsibility around that. If people aren't getting it, then you take the responsibility around it. If people aren't getting who you are as a leader, then something's disconnecting there. There's an inauthenticity. There's a lack of shared commitment. There's a distinction that isn't there. You haven't set out and crafted the context in a way that moves with power and velocity. Yeah? And so it's the willingness to actually just be responsible and take responsibility when necessary. If I go out from the business side now, if I go out and somebody says no, great. Then I need to go back and take responsibility for that. And I'm taking responsibility for the conversation that occurred. Because clearly what I did not do was get them invited in. There was an inauthenticity there, and I probably wasn't speaking from a place of commitment that inspired them to action. Yeah? That brought forward something. I got it's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah? And I got it doesn't show up as, and here was the thing I like. I mean, because we use it all the time. Got it. I got it. Yeah? How many times do you get the, from your guys, I got it. Yeah, I got it. You know, you get the very defensive, I got it. If you get that, something's askew. You need to take a look. But when you get the I got that, right? I got it. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. Roger that, I got it. Yeah? Then it landed. We talk about that in things actually landing with the other person, where they get it. And they get it in such a way that now I've taken that power and velocity that I own as a leader and put it into somebody's hands. You go out and tell your people something, share it out, give it out, what do they need to do, how do they need to move, how are they going to take action on it, yeah? And they give you back the, I got it. Paul was able to share that in a way that landed. Nothing else needs to be said. And that is a quality of this organization. And for all of you who sit in the room. And so when you get the, oh yeah, I got it. Oh yeah. You know, because they come. This is what you look back to. One of these three things. One, am I speaking from what it is I'm committed to or we're committed to as a team, as an organization, as a unit? Am I coming authentically from that place at every moment and every time? And if not, great, then I just need to be responsible for something there. Those three things align, I'm telling you, things shift. Things start to move in a whole new way and in a whole new light. Yeah? They really do. So what are you committed to?